Right, I'm Derek Wall from the Green Party and Green Left. I'm very pleased to have the invitation to speak, and I'm talking about climate change. And climate change is a tremendous problem. If you don't think there's anything to it, just look at The Economist, which is hardly a radical publication. And The Economist has been talking, they had a massive report on oceans in December, talking about the fact that oceans are absorbing so much CO2 that they're becoming acidic, and that's going to destroy shellfish and destroy marine environments and food chains. And there's huge rises in temperature already. For example, we've heard just today that in Ecuador there are power cuts because there's a drought which switches off the hydroelectric dams, and that's because of warming. So we've got this tremendous problem. So parts per million of CO2 and other greenhouse gases have gone from 280 parts per million to 380 parts per million in something like 70 years. Scientists are saying that we need to stabilise them at something like 400, or else we get runaway climate change and chaos. The bad news is we have a whole international framework that doesn't work. So in a couple of weeks' time at Copenhagen we have an international conference to deal with climate change. What is forgotten amidst all the negotiations and arguments is that the whole international framework is based on carbon trading. And carbon trading, where people buy and sell the right to produce CO2, is a gigantic fraud. And the people who are making money out of this are the banks. So there's something like 160 billion a year spent on carbon trading, yet so far this hasn't reduced emissions at all. However, there are alternatives, eco-socialist alternatives. So in Cuba had a crash program of going green, organic permaculture agriculture which uses less energy, solar panels to power schools. There's a whole wind energy map for the whole island, and they're putting in wind turbines, and they've gone in and put into people's houses appliances that use less energy. So they've actually had a measure of economic development while reducing their carbon footprint. So they're a brilliant solution. We also need to keep the coal in the ground and the oil in the ground and so on, and we need to protect rainforests and other key ecosystems that absorb carbon. And where we've also had victory, and this is forgotten by most Greens, is in Peru. So in Peru you have the indigenous people in Adizep. This year 100 of them were killed by the Peruvian government, but they've won a victory and they've saved their forests. So if we look at the kind of Cuban solution, if we look at indigenous people protecting the environment, if we look at a Green New Deal that will create millions of jobs through renewable energy, there's ways in which we can actually tackle climate change, and it actually improves people's standard of living. But these are things that we need to fight for, we need to fight for very urgently, which is why I'm glad to be here, just to be catalysing a little bit of discussion.